That's not a podcast.
This is a podcast.
Hello everyone, how are we all doing today? We're here for the next edition of the Aussie Canuck podcast.
Yay!
I'm of course the magnificent Magpie, and I'm here with...
I am Alex, the superhero enthusiast.
Alright.
Guess which one of us is Canadian and which one is Australian.
Well, usually we kick this off with the stories. I've got three big pieces of news. I auditioned for Big Brother this year and failed miserably twice. And I got some good news. The Aussie Canuck podcast has been picked up for a second season.
Woo! We've picked ourselves up.
Well, I guess I better start off because I've got some. Seeing as this is the Aussie edition, I figured we'd start off with the Australian edition news.
Go for it.
Yeah, well, what's been making the rounds in the news is, of course, this Malaysian flight that went missing. Whoa. Not even in the Bermuda Triangle, but not far from where I am. But, they need a new drone to search for this black box that's, like, for the plane, and they can't seem to find it. And it's, over 4,000, it's 4,500 meters down. So that's, like, really far down. That's really far to go down or something. Yeah, anyway, they need a new drone, so, because it's just like, so hard to find this thing. But yeah, so that's the big news coming out of there. Of course, the plane's gone. The plane went missing a few weeks ago. I think it was just not too long after our last edition, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, so, I'm so sorry for the people that have lost loved ones and all with this. So, but let's turn things over to Alex, who may have some happier news for us.
Not so much happy news as just kind of face-palmy, ridiculous sort of news. So, in Canada here, the Conservatives have formed the government, and have for quite some time. The new recent Liberal leader is named Justin Trudeau. Now, he is the son of former Prime Minister Pierre Elliott Trudeau. And basically right now on television, the Conservatives are running all these attack ads against him to try and defame him. And one of them focuses on his policy on marijuana, which is, thankfully, finally, the Liberal Party has stood up and said, we are now putting in our platform, if we get elected in next election, which will be in a couple of years, I believe, we will legalize cannabis. Because, there have been countless studies done, and they've all shown that it is far less harmful, rather, than other things which are legal, like alcohol and tobacco. And so, I will quote you exactly what these attack ads say. Justin Trudeau, he thinks that marijuana should be sold in stores like alcohol and tobacco. But what of the children? And that is completely ridiculous for two reasons. One, because, like I just stated, scientifically proven to be less harmful than other things which we sell. The second one being the whole, but think of the children appeal doesn't make any sense because children can't buy alcohol and tobacco in stores. You have to be 18 to buy alcohol and I think 19 for cigarettes. So it's just complete nonsense. And to top it all off, in these attack ads, they use this footage of Justin Trudeau doing this kind of like striptease thing to try and show, oh, look at this guy, he's irresponsible, you shouldn't vote for his party. But the striptease thing they've been using for years, and that was from a charity event. So it's basically them saying, don't vote for this guy and his party. He's willing to put his ego aside to, help raise money for charity. Just completely mind-boggling. But I guess they're, doing it all on the fact that a lot of people, and probably older people who tend to vote conservative, won't bother to do the research and, find out that he, did that for charity and, all the research behind cannabis as well. But it's just, every time I see it on TV, I just, double face palm. I wish I could grow, like, another arm so I could triple face palm. It's that ridiculous.
You and politics. You just really don't like this Conservative Party, because every time you come on, you're usually talking about them.
Well, it seems, just because there's so much stupid stuff going on. And I mean, like, we used to have a progressive Conservative Party that got eaten up by basically the Canadian Alliance Party, who were far more right-wing, and then that just became what is the modern Conservative Party. And progressive conservatism, I always thought was great, because it's like fiscal conservatism plus progressive social policy, which is, I think, a good balance. But this new government is just new Conservative Party, and now that they're in power and have been, they're doing all these really horrible things to, like, systematically try and dismantle the democracy in this country, and that's not a good thing at all. And that's why, it keeps coming up, and I'm really, really pissed, because they should not be able to do that.
Well, let's get on to the happy part of the podcast then. The movie that we actually did a commentary from a couple of weeks ago, The Man from Snow River, we're going to be discussing. So if you didn't feel like listening to about an hour and a half of us talking about that movie, we're probably going to be a little bit shorter here and a little bit more concise about the movie. So, yeah. So let's dive into it, shall we? The story is mainly about this guy, Jim Craig, who his father dies and he has to move down and get a job at the move down to the out of the mountains to the lower.
Basically like a ranch, isn't it?
Yeah. Cattle station, and get a job. He gets a job at a cattle station, falls in love with the owner's daughter, and subsequently gets fired. She chases after him, and then wackiness ensues for the climax. So, which is the climax is basically the poem. So if you've read the poem, you will know what happens at the end of the movie, basically. But so Alex, I got you to watch this because this is actually in my 10 favorite movies of all time, like as stated in a previous podcast I did a while back. So what did you think of the film? I know you stated that in the commentary, but let's just get it out of the way here for those who didn't listen to that.
I really, really enjoyed it, actually. I think it's a tremendously well-made film, and I don't know if it's just because it's a period piece, but it feels very timeless. And, I mean, you kind of outlined what happens. I'm sure people can kind of see just from that. It is a timeless story of, romance and bravery and all these types of things. So I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Well, what are some of your favorite moments out of the movie, first of
all? I love the first kind of scene between Jim and Sigrid Thornton's character, and just kind of the flirtation in that scene. And then, like, they say things, and then they take them the wrong way, and it's kind of how it builds. And it's like, it felt very real to life, which I appreciated.
I personally love how strong Sigrid Thornton's character is, because that's
Hmm.
Jessica, by the way. Uh, I love how strong she is. Like very early women's, because you got to remember this is the 1800s, or late 1800s anyway. Women didn't have much rights back
No,
then. Yeah, very like they couldn't own land. There was,
they couldn't vote.
yeah, and there's a joke in there. Women lawyers. Sorry,
And
women
I'm just,
argue.
yeah, I
argue
I want to look through the credits and see like how many female lawyers worked on this movie or like were involved in the production.
Yeah, because that seems like a bit joke. Kurt Douglas is in this movie as well, and he plays two roles. His uh, two brothers that don't really get along, uh, who have a past, and that
Hmm.
between it's just this kind of underlying backstory to the whole movie. What do you think of that part of it?
Uh, I enjoyed that. That's a really cool and again kind of a classic element. I was kind of wary going into it, thinking like this is supposed to be a big Australian movie. Why is Kirk Douglas, playing such a big role in this? And not only playing such a big role, playing two big roles in this movie. But I think he does really well, and I didn't feel like he's the American character they shoved in this to appeal to, the U.S. audience. It felt like natural and like it made sense.
Mm. As I said in the commentary, he didn't have a great time out here. Not saying that he was terrible on set, which he was, but
I've heard that about him with regards to other movies as well. So
yeah. So the guy is not the easiest person to work
he's a
with. But
diva.
yeah. Yeah. I personally, yeah, I think my favorite character, of course, is Jim Craig. He's great, great in this. He did a lot of his own stunts. The um, guy's name, which escapes me right now. Sorry. Uh, 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 Tom Burlinson. Yes. He did a lot of his own stunts. And I love this movie. I love the soundtrack to it. I spoke about that quite a bit in the
Hmm.
commentary, because sorry I keep going back to that, guys. I will put a link to that below if you haven't checked it out. Please do. The story, just, and I love the epic shots throughout this movie. How they pull back with helicopter shots, and that you see so much. And as I said, eat your heart out, Australia. The Baz Luhrmann movie, which is like, in that film, it's big shots of like nothing, it's desert for miles. But this is like mountains and valleys and everything, and it's just beautiful. Lots of green. Because, sorry, but when I think of Australia, I don't necessarily think of desert.
Well, yeah, because most of the people in Australia don't live in the desert part, because it's the desert.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, and yeah, it's just like, but like even in the desert, there's some green parts and everything. It's really, yeah, it's really beautiful country out here. But uh, and obviously not a lot of this was actually probably shot on the Snowy River, because, like, guess what? There is no Snowy River anymore. It's like this trickling little stream that comes down.
Now that was
But
because of a damming project that they did, right?
yeah, yeah. After World War II, there was this big process to get immigrants, and a lot of them worked and died on the Snowy River scheme. Uh, yeah, which is a whole bunch of dams that power quite a bit of New South Wales and Victoria.
Hmm.
But it's very kind of green in some respects. In some ways, it's not. But
Yeah, hydroelectric is kind of odd that way.
yeah, because it's, yeah. Um, what are some of the other favorite bits of this movie? Because I want to focus on the positives, because there's
Um,
not really a lot of negative you had to say about the movie, really.
Yeah, there isn't. Like you, I really enjoyed the soundtrack for this too. It's very kind of classic and classy, and I love like Jessica has her own theme in the film, and it's this piano piece, and in the film she plays piano, and like that's the song that she plays. So it's
Mm.
like it's actually integrated into the film, which I really liked.
Yeah, and that montage that's done along with it, with Jim and her, and it shows them falling in love over the course of, I guess, a week or two. It depends on
I think it was a couple weeks, but
yeah, yeah. It is kind of handled in a montage, but it's really
however long it takes to break a horse.
yeah, yeah. Because I think that's the name of the song. I do have it here on my iPod, but and that is actually my favorite piece of music for the movie because it is so beautiful and so. I just I I really do love that piece of music. Um, yeah, Breaking the Cult. Yeah, it's Jessica's theme in brackets. Breaking the Cult. Yeah. Yeah. So and well. What? Before we go to the climax of the piece, because we've kind of covered a lot of it already. What if you what little nitpicky things do you have problems with within the film?
I feel like he kind of killed his father at the beginning. Just because he didn't listen and was sort of irresponsible. And then the gravestone says died by accident. And it's like, no, you're kind of more responsible than that. I don't know if that's just a guilt thing on his part or what, but yeah, I don't know. I don't really even have a whole lot of nitpicks for this movie. It's just consistently good, and that was kind of the thing. I was maybe a little bit surprised by going in because every movie has some type of issue, but this is just like really good from start to finish.
Yeah. I don't feel like I've got anything really negative to say about it, really. God, I can't. I literally can't think of anything because it's so well paced.
Yeah, it's tremendously well paced. Like this is a really well constructed film,
and doesn't feel like it's running that long, really, does it? Like I remember we were talking about it, and we're like, oh God, we're nearly finished. We're like only got like half an hour to go for the movie. Yeah, because I think we say that in the commentary, or at least I do, because
it barrels along like a wild drumbeat.
Yeah. Yeah. So, well,
I feel like as a non-Australian, having seen this film, maybe a little like I understand Australia as a country better, because there's very much a kind of feeling like this is a film that represents Australia's national identity in a way. 'Cause this is a classic poem from when Australia was being, or based on a classic poem from when Australia was being founded and colonized and really becoming, going on the path to becoming a nation. And it says a lot, I think, about the national character because there's this whole theme in the film about, the Brumbies and taming things, and Kirk Douglas's character wants to try and tame all that land up by the Snowy River, and Jim says, like, only a fool would try and tame that. And so it kind of gives a bit of a window, I think, into the Australian psyche, or at least I felt that way.
Yeah, because as you see in that piece of when Jessica goes chasing after Jim, she has a accident herself and nearly dies because she falls off a cliff and has to climb back up with Jim's help and her horse dies running roughshod and straight into a rock. But yeah, it shows that it's very wild and untamable like that. Kind of like a lot of Australia is because, well, we got things out here that will just kill you.
It reminds me. This film reminded me a lot of Jack London stories, and Jack
Mm.
London wrote the Sea Wolf and White Fang and a lot of those types of
Oh.
old stories. But and of course they're set in like Alaska in the north. But I mean it's the same kind of idea with kind of the wilderness and around that same era as well that this is set.
Mm.
Of people just trying to settle places and that whole struggle between the wild and civilization and what can you tame and what should you tame.
Mm. Well, did you get a chance to read the poem at all?
Yeah, I did before we did the commentary actually, but that was a little while ago.
Mm.
I enjoyed it. I mean, it's very much in that old kind of classic style.
Mm. Well, I think it's time we at least talk about the climax of the piece. Well, basically, what happens, to give you a brief roundup of it, Jessica comes home, uh, being brought home by Spur, who's her uncle. She finds that out, and well, I think thanks to Jim, by the way, and yeah, Jim uh, gets fired and has to ride away. But before he does, he gets into a fight with one of the other employees that he's been having trouble with, and those guys decide to release the stallion. That's kind of the what would you call the stallion in this, Alex? The because it's
Yeah, I don't know.
like I'm looking for the word to describe it in the story. Like it's the
It's kind of
uh,
the MacGuffin
yeah,
that everybody's
like,
trying to get.
yeah, in a way. So that gets released, and then they have to go and get it. And Jim is brought back by another character. I can't.
He's a guy who used to work with his dad, and that's the
Yeah,
whole point earlier in the movie. Because
Clancy. That's his name.
this guy's kind of famous, and Jim says to the other people and some of the employees that he wasn't getting along with, that he knows the guy, and they're like, yeah, right. And then the guy shows up and is like, hey, Jim.
Sorry to hear about your dad. He was a good mate. And that's the thing. In Australia, mates are like it's. I hate to say it, but I think there's in some ways there is a deeper bond when Australian friendship is because it's to me it's always very important. Like I'm not saying it's not uh, important everywhere else, but there is like a cultural thing about
hmm
Australians and and mates because it's very important. So Clancy runs into him on the way back because he takes off and part way and then comes back and he brings Jim back with him. Yeah, and Clancy sort of gets him into the chase for the stallion, and thus the chase for the
Great
stallion begins.
action in.
Oh,
I'm still kind of like curious about how they got certain shots in this movie.
mm, yeah, I'm curious too. Yeah,
'Cause, I mean, I'm assuming you'd have to drive along with all the horses, but you would also, I mean, you would have to keep pace with them and control the horses to some degree. Like, it seems like it would be a tremendous amount of work to pull off what they pulled off, especially to have
yeah,
them look as good as it does.
yeah. So yeah, my favorite moment of this whole thing is where Jim goes riding off the cliff and down and down the mountain to go and chase after the stallion and the rest of the Brumbies. And yeah, that's my favorite shot of the whole movie. And yeah,
It's kind of
because
the killer moment because, I mean, that's the thing about Jim is he grew up in that wilderness. He knows it, he knows how to live with it rather than trying to tame it, and
mm,
so that's why he's able to, I guess, uh, persevere in the end and pull off a daring stunt like that in
mm,
order to get the horse because he knows that land and all the other guys there, aren't as familiar with it.
mm. And it's kind of subtle there, but they all think he died by
Yeah.
falling down there. I know I had to tell you guys that because it was like not exactly obvious, but it's kind of you kind of see it there on their faces, and especially where Harrison comes back and Jess I think says, "Where's Jim?" and then like you hear the whip crack and the guy say, "Look at that!" and he's bringing all the horses in, and there's I love that theme there too at the end. It's very classy and everything. Yeah.
Hmm. And of course, he wins the prize money at the end and turns it down, and he says that's not why I rode.
Yeah, and I love what Spurs says to Harrison. He's not a lad, he's a man. And then Clancy says, the man from Snow River. Kind of forced in there, but I think it works.
Yeah, no, it makes sense because it does all work with, like basically like what I just said, about him being from that area.
Mm. So, there's a lot of great shots in that last climax, like you said, and some of them would have been tricky to get, but I love like my second favorite piece of music is that whole chase scene with the Brumbies. It's very classy piece of music. I love it. It's really classical but upbeat and everything. It's really like, and it feels like it's horses sprinting. It's very like dun 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 all the way through. It's a great piece of music. Now I'm not, as a lot of my viewers probably know, I'm not really a music guy, but I just love the soundtrack to this. I listen to it quite often now because I downloaded it off of iTunes, and I just love it. It's a great lot of music here, and yeah.
I feel like this is the kind of movie that if I had seen it when I was a kid, I probably would have seen it like 200 times. Like I would have just worn out the VHS tape watching and rewatching this. Because it's that kind of a movie,
Mm, yeah. I can't. And the thing is, we both had trouble finding like anything bad to say about it because it's just so hard to say anything bad about it. Like, it is reasons why it got more than its fair share of its money back. It was brilliant. And I even think the climax at the end is a great adaptation of the poem because that's the only bit of the whole franchise that is like has anything to do with the poem. Really, like it's the whole
That is a really fascinating point that basically they were able to take the poem and craft this larger, very timeless story around it. I think that's just brilliant. Because, that's a very hard thing to do.
Mm. Well, yeah, it is very hard to do, and a lot of Watch Mojo today, speaking of adaptation, said they had trouble adapting like TV shows. It's been hard to do that really well. Like even one that I think the Mod Squad apparently was a great adaptation of that TV show, but failed miserably. But not enough about that. Yeah, I'm just trying to think of anything else to say about the. Is there anything else you want to bring up before we wrap up here?
Zombie Brumbies. No. If you've watched the commentary, you'll know what I mean. Yeah, I'm kind of curious about the Brumbies, and maybe I can just ask a couple little questions here that were maybe spurred by watching the movie. Are Brumbies still a big thing? I can't imagine they're a huge issue anymore, but
Well, actually, my mother was telling me recently she read a story that there's been so much inbreeding among the Brumbies going on that it is becoming a kind of a problem. They're dying out because like they're smaller now. They're I gather from what she told me that they're like practically turning into like ponies in a way.
Oh, that would make sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but at what point were horses, I guess, introduced to Australia? Because that would have been something the Europeans brought, right?
Yeah, and the name Brumby, I believe, comes from the guy that actually released the first lot. Yeah,
Oh.
I don't actually know a lot about it, but would be worth researching because yeah, it's an interesting thing. Because well, I think initially they were released to just get some breeding going, so they could have more horses and that.
Yeah, because sometimes breeding in captivity can be problematic.
Yeah, I gather that's what it was. Anything else?
Well, the guy who wrote the poem, Banjo Patterson,
Yep.
he kind of has a cameo in the movie as a character, which I thought was kind of cool.
Yeah, yeah, that was cool.
And like we can see him, at the big chase scene, really watching, in earnest. And I almost feel like he's about to like reach into his coat pocket and pull out a pad of paper and start writing the poem on it or something. He's that jazzed by it.
Yeah, that's cool. And of course, Banjo Patterson is very famous. I think this is his most famous work, but he wrote like a whole bunch of other stuff as well.
Okay.
Like,
that was kind of my next question was, what other stuff has he done?
well, I think my sister and me had a book that was had another one of his poems in it, The Bunyip from Somewhere.
Oh, bunyips. That's interesting.
Yeah. I forget where it's it's a story about that as well. He did a lot of poetry, and he's famous for saying this. I just remember this is from a comedy show I got on DVD. Beer makes you feel like you should without beer.
I need to get into this guy's stuff.
I don't know if he was just trying to get out of his shout, but
Well, that is the thing about writers. They're always drinking and always smoking because the alcohol lets out all the emotions and the nicotine stimulates the creativity.
Yeah. Well, unless there's anything else, I think we should get into like rating territory.
Okay. That's always a place I'm awkward in. I don't know how to rate things a lot of the time, so.
Well, I'm gonna give this. I hate to go, it's, talking about it, watching it with other people, it made me give it this rating. It's definitely 5 Brumbies out of 5.
Yeah, I gotta give this 5 Brumbies out of 5 too. I really can't find any flaws with it.
Yeah. I really couldn't either. But
one thing that might be worth talking about before we wrap up is there was a sequel made to this.
Oh yes.
And it was made quite a bit after this one, wasn't it?
Yeah, like nearly, I think like 7 or 8 years later. Like it was made in this was made in the early 80s. The next one was made in like the very late, I think 89 or something. It was made and released. I've got it right in here in front of me. Oh yeah, it's 6 year gap, 81, and then the next one was made 87. What I was going to say was we're going to talk about that one sometime in the future as well because that is worth talking about in great depth. But
yeah, I'm really just kind of curious to see it because you said it's very, very good, and oftentimes sequels don't tend to be, and especially when you have a sequel to a movie like this that we've basically just said is quantitatively and qualitatively essentially perfect. Like I don't have any complaints about this film. So it's always difficult to recapture the magic, and from the sounds of it, they did, and they took their time, which I think maybe is why they were able to pull it off. But
yeah, it wasn't rushed in production like some other sequels have been.
Yeah. But I'll be curious to see that.
Yeah, it's it's a great film, very good follow up, and it wraps the story up in a nice little bow for us, so we don't have any tangling threads, which was kind of left in this movie. There was like
Yeah, and
one
it's
or
not
two.
really. I wouldn't necessarily even characterize that as a criticism. It's just because he says that he's going to come back for Jessica at some
Mm,
point. So it's like we can fill in the gaps in our mind.
mm.
That they lived happily ever after.
Well, you'll see whether that's true in the sequel or not.
Oh.
Yeah. But yeah, I think we should end it off here. But Alex, it's your turn next time. What are we doing next time?
Next time we're doing one of, if not my favorite comedy show ever, Corner Gas. It's a Canadian sitcom. Canada is not well known for sitcoms. We have a lot of comedy stuff, but not a lot of it is sitcom. And Corner Gas was wildly successful, and most of the sitcoms that we've had have not been too terribly successful. So I loved the show when it first came out. We'll obviously talk about how the show went as it went on when we discuss it next. But that's what we're going to be covering is Corner Gas.
Yeah. I watched that, and I'll let you know my thoughts on it when we come back next time. And just a quick few things that we're probably going to get into next year because we're kind of like focusing this year on TV shows and movies. Next year we'll probably be doing some more comedians and a few other things.
Yeah, really kind of vary it up and explore
mm,
more than just straight up movies and TV.
mm. But also, hopefully, soon we'll be doing. We'll be joined by Steve Baxi for the first edition of chemically assisted commentaries. And right out of the gate, we're jumping in the deep end with X-Men Origins Wolverine. So stay tuned for that, guys, because that's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you all next time.